very creative. We can also be creative in a poem. It can be about anything, but the story and the narrative has more structure to it. So let's talk about what that structure is. And you don't need to memorize all these words, this new vocabulary, but since we're taking a poem and turning it into a narrative, I wanted to put some language around, some language for what a narrative is. So on the right here, I have the components of a narrative. So repeat after me. Setting, characters, action, dialogue, and conclusion. So let's talk about each word and what that means. These are the components. These are the parts of a narrative. Every story in a narrative form has a setting, characters, action, dialogue of some sort. It can even be unspoken dialogue and conclusion. So what is a setting? In a play, a theater play, or even a movie, a lot of times they have the movie set, the set on the stage. So it's the place, it's the time, it is where and when the story happens. Where the story happens, when the story happens. An example is a park in the summer. So in our poem from Robert Frost, what is the setting? It's a farm, right? It's a farmer talking to his friend. The setting is a farm. We get the sense, because of the special order of the words, that it's a farm in the past. It's a farm from history. It's a farm back in time. I think it was actually around the 1950s. So when the poem was written, it was a contemporary farm. It was that time, but that poem was written a long time ago. So the setting is a farm back in the 1950s. So what are characters? Characters. When we talk about a play or a film, a lot of times we talk about the actors. The actors. So the characters are the people. And in this poem, also the horses have a pretty big role, I think. So the characters are the farmer, the narrator, the farmer friend that comes to visit. I'm assuming he's a farmer, that it's an agricultural place. So we have the farmer, the friend, and the horses, right? The horse that the friend rides on that slows to a meaning walk, that horse, that friend, and the farmer are the characters. The farmer, or the narrator, or the speaker of the poem, the one who tells the story in the poem, the friend that he stops working to talk to, and I would say the horse. Especially in the poem, the horse version, the horse plays an important role. So when I say action, what does that mean? What am I referring to when I talk about the action? Action, active, activity. That is what's happening in the poem or what's happening in the narrative. And what is happening? What is the farmer doing? The farmer is working the land. The farmer takes action and stops working to take action to talk to the friend is really what most of the poem is about, is the importance of that time talking to a friend. So those are the action that's happening in the story. Action. Another part of a narrative is the dialogue. The dialogue is really what the people are saying. The dialogue is, in the poem, the dialogue isn't explicitly said. There isn't dialogue where the farmer says this, the friend replies this. The dialogue really is in the action. The conversation that's happening so far in the poem is the fact that the farmer's going to stop working the land and go talk to the friend. The friend, by slowing the horse to a meaning walk, is kind of indicating, is telling, is talking to the farmer. The friend is talking to the farmer with his action of slowing the horse. So in this poem, there isn't really dialogue, where they said, dialogue in words, it's dialogue in action. Now in the narrative, when we're rewriting the poem, we can add dialogue. We can be creative and have fun. We can think about, well, what would the farmer say first thing? Maybe, hi friend, or you owe me $5. And then the friend, what does the friend reply? So in the narrative, we have more room, more space to put in the dialogue as we're rewriting the poem to tell the story in a narrative form. And then the conclusion is really important. When we tell a story, why does the story matter? What happens to the characters? What action happens to create the end of the story, to come to a conclusion, to come to an end, to come to the point? The conclusion answers the question, why is this story being told? Why is the story being told? What's the point of this? What are we going to learn from the telling of this story, from the listening to this story? And I think in the poem, the point is that it's important to stop working the land because this friend has come over, and it's important to have this conversation with the friend. So the conclusion, the farmer, the character of the farmer stops working to talk to the character of the friend because the conversation with the friend is more important at that moment than the work. So we were talking about the theme of life-work balance. And the conclusion, the point to the story at the end is that it is more important. The farmer realizes that. The narrator stops working the field and talks to the friend. That is the conclusion. So these are the different components of a narrative. So we're going to rewrite this poem. We've talked about the meaning. So now in your own words, I want you to rewrite the poem in a narrative story. Talk about the setting, where and when. Talk about the characters, the who. Talk about the action, the did what. Have some dialogue in there. What would they say to each other? And have fun and be creative. There's no wrong way to rewrite it. We just want the central theme to carry through. That's important. But you can have fun and be creative about how that meaning is portrayed in a narrative form versus as we see in the poem. And then in the conclusion, this is where we can really make a statement. We can end on a high note. We can end it in a way that leaves the reader thinking about what you wrote. So also be creative and have fun with the conclusion. So let's make sure the narrative that we're writing covers all of these points, and we'll work together